The events of this night operate on several levels all at once. One observes history, one observes geography, but one also observes cosmology. One observes the great cosmic agony, light against darkness. It is easy to concentrate on just the geography, just the history. It is already an important element. We are remembering a moment in time. But we need to cast our eyes on what is actually taking place before the eyes of our imagination. Here, truly, we have something which sets Christianity apart from anything of a man-made order. We forget, because we have heard it often, that actually the second person is now man. We forget what a mind-boggling issue that actually is. It did take about 3 centuries, or at least 2.5, for that to be thrashed out by the early fathers in council after council. Indeed, it was still being thrashed out in the early 400s. It was complex. What was going on? The implications of human nature and divine nature coming here into one person are huge, and we cannot fathom it easily. There are implications also with regard to the will. Was he a complete person? Did he have a will as a man? Did he have a soul as a man? And so on. It goes on and on. What was his knowledge as a man? The fact is that this is the culmination of salvation history. We are here at the full stop of the long await. But then, for somebody to come in some centuries later and say this was not yet the greatest, but there was somebody greater after him to come, is interesting. Either such a claim is true or it is false. If it is false, what actually was pushing a prophet or whatever to come up in the name of God and say that he had also had a visit from the Archangel Gabriel, who was the one who first gave this announcing of cosmic history in salvation to our Blessed Lady, the Virgin Daughter of Zion? No. Here we have the fullness of grace and truth. And we have that fullness in an emptiness. We notice that the King of Kings did not demand what a great king would demand in this world. Indeed, he knew before coming why he was coming and what it entailed. The correct vision of Bethlehem is the end point. He was coming to end that time also in the same area. It's only about 30 miles away, Jerusalem. And even though he spent the 30 years in between in Galilee, it was in Jerusalem, the holy city prepared by the prophets, that our salvation was to be accomplished, using what he had acquired at Nazareth and Bethlehem. Our Lady had to, in our name, offer him our humanity, And so she too was prepared by that same providence and care. And so we find that already the choice is that of the sideline, the simplicity, the uncomplexity of poverty. Not that Our Lady and St. Joseph were actually miserably poor, but they did give eventually the offering of the poor in the temple, 2 turtle doves. So we have here the Lord indicating something of the danger that is facing us when we approach life from the other angle and demand our rights as mini kings while we travel through this short life. In our celebration, something of the contamination also may be threatening us. We notice the way that the Lord himself was celebrated. That same providence took care of the celebration of the arrival. Direct angelic intervention. To whom did they come? Well, to the simple, the empty, the free, the expectant, the uncluttered, those who are actually close by, the shepherds living close to nature. He came also in a strange revelation. We don't know quite what happened with the wise men, but the Lord used the means that they had of studying to reach their minds, and they followed what they intuited, and it was correct. But they came a long way, and they came probably with a certain amount of wealth as gifts. They came, however, in that freedom of distance from their roots. They were detached. They were working in dark faith. Our Christmas, if we're not careful, can be a celebration of the world. We notice that St. John, in his prologue, does say that he came to his own, and his own did not receive him. Well, it applies also even in geography. Bethlehem was historically the area of his lineage, and he was not received there. There was no room. Well, I wonder whether this Christmas the Holy Child is coming into places where there is much celebration, but where actually there is no room for him. It can happen also in our own celebration. It can be on 2 levels, somewhat depleting as regards the fullness. We can prepare well, and it is correct that we prepare well, the actual liturgical honouring. But the attention must be free to honour the person, and the attention must not be given to the details in the moment of celebration, otherwise it is self-defeating, and again a subtle way of letting the Lord feel actually that he, not his things, are the centre of our gaze. But there is also the other, less subtle, and by now very obvious element of the feast itself. It is interesting that it is no longer, it seems, politically correct to talk about Christmas as such. It is the holiday. We won't go into that, but it's interesting that we can talk quite socially and politically about Satan's feast, and overtly so at Halloween. Even though that is actually a Christian feast, it is All Hallows. And yet, Christmas must be neutral. It is everybody's holiday. And then one wonders how many are actually receiving the Lord in that warmth that the animals had to provide for him actually in the manger area in the end. Because a coldness of soul taken up with much on the outside and little in the depths, if not sin and unconfessed disobedience to the one that we are honouring, is not the best welcome to that King of Kings, who did not actually in the first instance ask for a huge, complicated welcome, but wanted and had the consolation of well-prepared vessels, Joseph and Mary, simple shepherds, and caring, wise kings, representing us all from far away. Bethlehem is sometimes well represented in our simple cribs. Indeed, the ancient tradition of making cribs is something which was given impetus by the Franciscan contact with the Holy Land. They are very popular in Italy, a Franciscan country par excellence, and they are cribs which show things happening from the social life of the time, genuinely incarnational, the toil of the people, and care also given to somehow suggesting life, even the sun going up and down and the cock crowing. Interesting that one likes to create an atmosphere, and that is correct as long as the atmosphere isn't the centre of attention. If we do anything to honour, it must be done with purity of intention and in calmness, without losing the serenity of the joy. For activism, even in the preparation of a celebration, leads to hardening of the heart when it comes to receiving the grace, that fullness of grace of which John speaks. And he does go on to say how we received grace in return for grace. In Greek it's charis ante charitos. Kecharin ante charitos, it says, and grace upon grace, or grace in return for grace, as though our correspondence to one grace leads to another, whereas the hardening of our heart to a grace leads to the deflecting of another. So the grace of this moment of world history that we in our liturgy are able to share is something gentle, something simple, something peaceful. And if our celebration is neither gentle nor simple, and certainly not peaceful, then, unfortunately, the Lord again finds that he has no room in the inn.